afternoon, and welcome back to Jeff and the Rabbi. Been a long vacation. I know you had your winter break.
Winter break, yeah.
Skiing in Aspen,
yeah.
Snow plowing.
Snow tubing in Toronto.
I know
Yeah.
you had a good break.
Yeah.
Here's the couple of things that we got to catch up on now that we're back. State of the Union of the
Right.
United States of America last week. A brilliant, brilliant address.
Right.
Guess what? I did not watch one syllable of the State of the Union address. I didn't watch it. There was a reason why. I love politics. It's not that I don't like politics. It's my hobby. I love politics. I really do, but here's what I thought. I also love football. I love college football. But if there was a game 6 years ago that we just played awful in, the coaching was bad, the play calling was bad, the quarterback was bad, everything was bad, and we did everything wrong, I wouldn't watch that same game, a replay of it, over every single year. And that's all the State of the Union was. It was just a replay of the same bad plays. We didn't learn anything from if our team didn't get any better, why would I watch the football game? So I've decided right here today, even though I didn't watch it, I'm going to give the real quick summary of the State of the Union. I didn't need to watch it because I saw it 5 times before, so I'll be President Obama here and I'll give you the State of the Union. Here's what we got. 50% of the country, I'm going to give you absolutely everything that you want for free. You don't have to pay a dime of taxes. I'm going to give you free health care. I'm going to give you free education. I'm going to give you a phone. I'm going to give you a computer. I'm going to give you a flat screen TV. I'm going to give you everything you want, and you don't have to pay one dime. Not one dime. Now, I know what you're saying. This sounds too good to be true. It's not. You only have to do one thing for me. You have 729 days you don't have to do anything. On the 730th day, you have to do something for me, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Everything else is free. Now you're saying to yourself, this can't be true. I'm going to make the deal even better. For a portion of you people out there that get everything for free and don't have to pay a dime, I'm going to do this. If you choose not to work, I'll tell you what I do. Not only do you get everything for free, I'm going to send you a check every single month just for not working. I'm going to send you a check. Better yet, there's more. I'm also going to say to you, I'm going to send you a special little credit card where you can go to any 7-Eleven, any store, and you can buy anything to eat, drink, lottery tickets, anything else you want. Don't pay a dime. Not a dime.
Yes.
I am asking for one thing for you. I told you I'd come back to this. In 730 days, which is once every 2 years, you just got to get off that free couch that I gave you, and you got to go down to the polling place and vote for me and my people and my party.
We'll give you a ride.
So that I can.
There'll be a car waiting for you.
I'll a bus, anything, just so that we can keep giving you that free stuff. You got to vote for me. Now you're saying, well, how's this possible? Who's going to pay for this? That's the best part of this whole thing. The other 50% of the people, the people who choose to go out and work and better themselves and move up into the middle class and move up higher, watch this. This is the best part about it. We are going to use the forces of the police, the forces of the army, with threat of imprisonment, and we are going to take from them every single dime that they earn in their salary from minimum till April of the year, maybe even to July of the year. We're going to steal every single dime from it, and we're going to give it to you. And here's the best part. They're dumb enough to let it happen because you have to show up once every 730 days and put me in power. You get everything for free. So that's my State of the Union. You get it. You deserve it. You get it for free. Now, Rabbi Freeman, we brought along a rabbi today to tell me in the Torah what's wrong with that. Everybody's happy.
You know how the Republicans get a chance to do the rebuttal, like right afterwards?
Yes.
So, like, they don't give me mine until a week later.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So here I get my chance for rebuttal. So, you know, as usual, I'm not nearly as harsh on the president as Jeff is.
Hey. I was just praising him.
I think Jeff's unduly harsh on the president. I think that the president is erroneous. However, I'm not harsh on him. Now, the problem is, you know, I would not have a gripe with the president's policies if they would work. In other words, let's say we took the money and we said, listen, all the money is with this group of people and none of the money is with that group of people. So let's make an equal distribution. We'll massage it around until everybody is equal.
Logical.
Sounds good. And after all, who could gripe? And this guy's got more money than he knows what to do with. And this guy's scraping around for just money for basic necessities. So does it make any sense that one guy should be sitting on top of a pile of money and nothing to do with it when the other guy desperately needs money? No. Let's redistribute it. and even it out. I think the particular example of this, someone will say, oh, he's not talking about redistribution of the wealth. Yes, he is, because the example, most pronounced example from the State of the Union address is the inheritance or death tax, as some would call it, depending on which side of the line you're on. I heard a great commentator talking, he analyzed it, and he says, I don't understand why everyone is against it, because it only affects a small number of people, so why should the masses be against it? He says, it's a strange thing in the United States that regular old folks are against it. He says, maybe everyone thinks that maybe someday I'll be rich. I think that there's an underlying principle which is why people are against it. The reason is because everyone knows that redistributing the wealth won't accomplish anything.
Oh, it won't.
You could redistribute all the wealth, and in a few weeks, months
maybe.
years, whatever, it's going to be right back where it was.
Gravitate right back to
Now, maybe there'll be different people now.
Not that many, but some.
There might be some different.
Right,
there might be
right.
some different faces in this crowd or that crowd, but you're going to be right back to that inequitable distribution of the wealth. That is what is going to happen. Now, this, by the way, is a biblical fact.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Yes, because I'm authorized to speak on behalf of the Bible.
The Bible, right there.
Yes, that's why they bring me here, right? Okay, it says in Leviticus, Ach, ki lo yachdal evyon mikerev haaretz. There will never cease to be impoverished people in the land.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that that's a good thing, that we have to make sure that there's always poor people. It's not any mitzvah to make poor people. It's not any good deed to keep people poor. God is just telling you a fact. And by the way, when God says a fact, you can pretty much count on it.
It's a fact, Jack.
Right.
Just like that.
God says this is the way it's going to be, and he writes it in a book, this is the way it's going to be. That is the way it's going to be. There's always going to be poor people. There's always going to be wealthy people. The distribution of the wealth will not help. Now, Mr. Obama and other socialists in that ilk would say that the problem, why they go after inheritance, because they'll say, listen, if you inherited all that money from your mom and dad, you never earned it. You don't deserve it. If you work for it, okay, we'll give it to you. You worked for it, you worked hard, you made a bunch of money, you can have it. But that doesn't mean that your kid gets to come along and be a rich guy and he didn't do anything, and his kid and his kid and his kid, because you're going to hang on to all the money, and all the other people who are working so hard are not getting anything because you got all the money and they only get doing all the work. That's what's griping him. That's really, really, really what's bothering him.
Just to throw something in there just so people understand, usually the majority of the inheritance tax is for people, let's say you're a farmer and you work for your entire life and you build up a big farm. Mm-hmm. And you have a big piece of land and you've got all these crops, and the patriarch or the father, he dies and it goes down to his kids. The problem is the land is now worth a lot of money. That doesn't mean that the kids are going to come in here and make enough money to pay that bill. So what happens, they now have to pay a 55% inheritance tax.
Right.
They can't afford to pay that tax because the farm doesn't make that much money, but the land is worth it. So they have to sell the farm. With the generations of their family have been working that farm, they have to sell the farm and move on and take the money just to pay the taxes, and they get nothing. Right. And that's what the Obama
Now, there's an underlying assumption here, and this is the underlying mistake throughout, and that is that your money isn't really your money. Your money is society's money. Now, they'll grant you, at least the socialists will, as opposed to the communists, the socialists will grant you that if you worked hard and you really hustled and you accumulated a whole bunch of it, then you get to have a lot of money. And the other guy, the other guy that didn't work so hard, he doesn't have so much. However, they will not. They said, but that's only for you. But if you're making money, let's say, off of your wealth, or not off your hard work, but let's say off your wealth, because now you can speculate and play markets, or you're just passing it on to your kids, and your kids are now just, they come into it without working, that's where they will gripe. The bottom line is, your money is your money. It's your own property, and you can do with as you wish. Now, in the Torah, there is tremendous amount of responsibility. Responsibility means...
that?
Yeah, right.
I didn't hear any of that in the State of the Union. That's
right. Responsibility means that we, all of us, are responsible to each other, to the society. If you should be oppressed and devastated without money, without any resources, so there is a hierarchy. Your relatives are supposed to come to your aid. And if the relatives aren't there to help out, your city comes to your aid. And if not your city, then your state, and so on and so forth. But yes, people are supposed to come to your aid. Not society as a whole. Matter of fact, society says, let the brother do it. Now, maybe the brother can't do it because he's poor also. Okay, then it moves out to the next. So there is a sense of responsibility where people who have are supposed to help people who have not. That does not mean, however, that the poor person has any claim to the resources of the wealthy person. It means the wealthy person has an obligation to help the poor person with his own money.
I understand that fully.
Right. Now, where the Torah will step in and gives power to the rabbis have the power to release ownership of anything. Let's say the rabbis see that there is a really big problem, and this happened in the times of Nehemiah, who, when they came back to build the second temple, what happened was a small group of people had all the land because everyone else had to borrow money from them, and everyone had mortgaged their properties and lost them all. So a few people owned everything, and everyone else was starving, and Nehemiah came along and he said, this is not going to work. And he forced the wealthy people to relinquish the lands that they had acquired through their lending practices because he saw it was going to be a calamity. But only, and the rabbis do have the ability to step in and fix an outrageous problem. But still, he didn't say to them, that money really belongs to the poor people. What he said is, if we don't release the poor people from these loans, society is going to collapse.
Right.
So as rabbis, we have to make sure society doesn't collapse. That means everyone has got to earn a living.
Everyone's got to want to earn a living.
Okay. Now, what we're saying is, if the rabbis see that there's a problem, they can step in and fix it. But it doesn't guarantee anyone anything. It doesn't guarantee it. Like, for example, they saw there was a problem because these people don't have their land anymore. They can't work their land. They can't pay off their debt. All their children were being taken away as slaves, and they had slavery in those days. And they didn't have a shot at ever redeeming their kids because they could never get enough money to do it. So he said, that's going to be horrible because you're going to end up having one group of people owning all the other group of people. He says, no, we can't let that happen. That doesn't mean, though, that it says, you've got too much money, we're going to take some from you and give it to him, because why should you be a 10 and he's a 1 when you could both be 5s? No discussion about that in the Torah.
Well, the Jewish or the Torah system obviously works, and I think that the great example of it is, I mean, you take the turn of the last century, right around that, in America. I mean, most of my friends are Jewish, and all their grandparents pretty much have the same story. Grandparents or great-grandparents, they came over from the old country, where the old country was Russia or Lithuania or Poland or somewhere like that, with nothing. Poor, completely poor. They came to America. There was no welfare. There was no government assistance. There wasn't food stamps. There wasn't free TVs. There wasn't any of those things. But the Jewish people, they had Jewish agencies. They gave tzedakah. They gave charity. And they took care of these people. Not took care of these people as in they gave them a color TV and they gave them all these things, that, a cell phone and a house and a guaranteed education. They gave them enough money, helped them get a job, put them through work, and these people made it. My great-grandparents, they suffered. They worked in a sweatshop. My grandparents did very well. My parents did even better, and my brothers and I are even doing better than that. That's what the American system is. And that's what the tourist system is. There wasn't any welfare. We did pretty well. That system is not around today, and the people today aren't succeeding as well as we did back then.
I agree with you, absolutely, that that there's work and industriousness,
Right.
which is what this country is really all about, and I think that's exactly why even the poor people in this country, or poorer people, certainly middle class people, are opposed to the inheritance tax, because in principle they don't like the idea of it. In principle, they like to say, if you start to do that stuff, then it makes everybody soft. It makes everybody want to be takers and all that type of stuff.
I think that's where we are right now.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Now, what I'm sure the president would say, I don't know if he would actually say this, but I know what he's thinking. He's thinking, it's really not fair, because those other folks, they're not going to make it. They don't have enough either smarts or industriousness because of their background.
Or because of the position that you put them in by not making them go out and work and become industrious.
Your family had a centuries old tradition of working hard and all that type of stuff, getting ahead. Yes, understandable. And he's saying, but other people don't, and therefore we've got to help them out. The bottom line is, yes, they do need help, and we have a responsibility to help them.
I totally agree with that.
However, all I'm saying is, all I can say from the Torah is that hoping that, let's say, aspiring to that one day when all people will live in relative economic equality and, security and be well with each other and all that
up in a minute, so give me a minute.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen, because the Torah devotes a lot of talk about responsibility to poor people. And there's a lot of rules about how poor people are supposed to conduct themselves. You see that a fact of life is that there are going to be poor people and there are going to be wealthy people. I wouldn't want to be one of the poor people, but there are going to be poor people and there are going to be wealthy people. It's always going to happen. It is a fact, and you cannot engineer society in such a way as to erase that inequality.
But I think that that's okay, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm against people that have, helping the people that have not. I think that's what society is about. I think you should absolutely, when you see a poor person, you do everything you can to help them. You see somebody who doesn't have, you do everything you can help them. But, and I know you've told me this before, and I've read this in a lot of, I think it was in the Pirkei Avos, the biggest help that you can ever give to a poor person is help them themselves not be poor anymore, to help them get a job, to help them gain, to help them grow. And that doesn't seem to be part of our society anymore. That's the best thing you can do. Listen, you don't want to see anybody, no one should starve, especially in our country. We're a very rich country. No one should starve. No one should be without. They might have to be without maybe a big screen TV and maybe things like that, or a cell phone, because they need to earn those. If they get them for free, the biggest problem we have, example, I have some people, that have worked with me before, and still actually work for me. Their biggest, that we talk about all the time, is they would probably make more money if they didn't work for me and they sat home, because they have kids, they have whatever, and the amount of freebies they would get from the government would probably add up to be more than they would get working for me. So how is that encouraging people, like the Torah says do, to go out on their own?
Well, so the president said, what are we going to do with this money from the inheritance tax? He said, we're going to give everyone free community college tuition. Free community college tuition. It might be a nice idea.
No, it's not going to work.
It might be a nice idea. However, the point is that he keeps falling back on this idea of the wealthy people, they've got enough money anyway. The money really deserves to be helping the poor people go to community college. And that is where I believe it's in the principle of it is the mistake, because if you take that principle to its logical conclusion, then you're going to redistribute all the wealth so that everyone is now somehow equal, and that's not going to happen. So all you're going to do is you're going to, like communism. There was a bunch of bourgeoisie people, they had money. And there was a bunch of very poor peasants, they didn't have money. So they took away all the money from the bourgeoisie people, and they created a new group of bourgeoisie people, called them Communist Party people, and still a bunch of peasants, but now we call them comrades. So
it doesn't work.
right.
And systems and time and history prove it doesn't work. And also, the situation they keep forgetting, and this is another brilliance about the president's argument, is, the rich have to pay their fair share. The rich have to pay their fair share. The top 20% have to pay more. When the truth of it is, the top 20% pay about 94%, approximately, of the taxes. I mean, how much more can they pay, and how much more should they pay? Shouldn't everybody pay a little? If listen, even with your children out there, sometimes you want to go pay. You have money, but let your kid go buy something on his own. If he doesn't learn to pay, he doesn't learn that he has to pay, he never will.
Right. See, the society, Bill Gates said that, everyone has to give back to society, and people such as himself that gain so much have to give back a lot. Now, it's interesting. I wonder, what did society do more for Bill Gates than it did for me?
It didn't.
Society provided the roads to drive to work. Bill Gates drove to work and made $1 billion, and I drove to work and made $100,000.
And the difference also about it is I don't like the term give back. I don't like when I hear that. Give back makes it sound exactly like it was said. Okay, they took care of me, they built me up, now I'm giving back to them. You can give. The give back thing I never really like, and I don't even know if that's a Torah term either. Give back.
Right.
Take care of people, help them, but I'm not giving back.
The Torah talks about responsibility, but you're right. There's no giving back. Now, there are some things built into the Torah, such as we don't charge usury, we don't charge interest from our fellow Jews. There is a program that maintains that the property is equitably distributed, and I'm talking about real estate, equitably distributed. So the Torah does do a lot of things to help give everyone a good equal shot. However, at the same time, the Torah does say, even with all these things in place, there are going to be poor people and there are going to be wealthy people. And that's all there is to it. And the wealthy people are wealthy. And if the wealthy person, as a matter of fact, becomes poor, we have to support him at a higher level than a poor person, because he is suffering. When he suffers poverty, he suffers more than the poor person, because he doesn't come from a place where he has the wherewithal to even deal with it. Well, so it's amazing. We got to give even extra consideration to wealthy people who would become poor. So you see, the bottom line is that the Torah does not believe in redistributing the wealth. There's no such thing as the wealth. There is my wealth, and there's your wealth, and there's his wealth. One might have more, one might have less. It doesn't matter. Everyone's got what they got, and everyone has their personal obligations. And unless something is really going wrong and someone's getting hurt, at which time maybe the courts will step in, other than that, everyone is entitled to their money.
I like the Jewish system. I like the Torah system. You give because God tells you to give, and God tells you to help, and not Obama. It's a little bit different. I mean, but it's always worked. It seemed to work in the past, so maybe you need to look. The Jewish system kind of works. It has worked in the past, and
right.
I'm not switching to the Obama system. I'm just going to tell you, I don't believe in it. You give because you give, and you know what? And it is working. It worked for my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and I think it still works today.
Yeah.
So not bad.
Okay.
All right. Well, so the Rabbi's State of the Union is a little bit different than Barack Obama's State of the Union.
Right. The Jewish State of the Union is is the one that probably will be around, was around before, and will be around after everyone tries everything else in between, and they'll ultimately come back to the same old message.
Same old message. All right. So here we are again with the same old message. And we'll see you next week with the same old message again.
Right.